Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. I was not seeking a new religion. I wasn't looking for a new set of rules. I had everything: status, reputation, faith, and a family that honored me. What I didn't realize was that the very structure I built my life on was keeping me blind, silent, and chained. What I'll share with you isn't just a story. It is my soul, unfolded. If you've ever wondered whether there's more to life than rituals, more than fear disguised as devotion, I ask you not just to listen, but to feel. Let this be more than words. Let it be an invitation. My name is Amir Nassar, and this is how I found the truth that cost me everything, yet gave me life. I was born in Doha, Qatar, in a family that lived and breathed tradition. My father, Sheikh Majid Nassar, was the spiritual pillar of our district, a revered imam, advisor to government officials, and a man whose words silenced rooms. From an early age, I was trained to walk in his footsteps. Before I could even read, I could recite surahs from memory. My world was ordered, disciplined, and unquestionable. There was no room for uncertainty. Faith, I was told, was about submission, unwavering, unquestioning, and complete. And so, I obeyed. Everything I did was under watchful eyes: family, community, and God, or at least the version of God I was taught. I excelled at memorizing scripture, leading prayers, and debating points of theology. By the time I was a teenager, I was already seen as a future leader. I carried that responsibility with pride and fear, not fear of failure, but of dishonor. My father's words echoed often: "You are not just a man, Amir. You are a Nassar. You carry generations on your shoulders." And I did. Our home was filled with reverence. My mother, Layla, was gentle but firm, ensuring our household was the image of piety. There was love in our home, yes, but always conditioned by behavior. Any sign of curiosity outside the faith was met with subtle correction or overt condemnation. Western music, media, or even friendships with outsiders were seen as pathways to corruption. I didn't question it. To question would be to betray, and I was not a betrayer. I was a Nassar. I remember when I was first praised publicly in the mosque for my purity of thought. I had corrected a fellow student during Quranic recitation, and the elder imam clasped my shoulder and said, "Your clarity will lead many." That moment embedded itself into my identity. I began to chase approval, not just from people, but from God, or rather, the version of God that demanded obedience before love. I fasted harder, studied longer, and judged deeper. What I didn't realize was that my heart was becoming proud, not holy. By the time I entered university in Abu Dhabi, I was already leading Islamic student circles. I organized debates with Christians, atheists, and even liberal Muslims. I never lost an argument, but winning didn't bring peace. Each night I lay awake wondering why the victories felt hollow. I told myself I needed to try harder, be more devoted, suppress every flicker of emotion that questioned the rigidity of my path. I wasn't doubting, at least that's what I told myself. I was refining. At every family gathering, I was celebrated as the future sheikh. I wore that title like armor, but inside, something had begun to shift. Small, unspoken, but persistent. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't anger. It was silence. A silence that followed me even into prayer. I could say all the right words, perform every rite flawlessly, yet still feel untouched. That terrified me, because if my devotion wasn't enough, what was? But I buried the questions. I feared what would happen if I let them grow. I feared what my father would say. I feared losing the life I had built through obedience. After all, I had everything: respect, position, family, and the promise of legacy. Why would I risk it for a whisper I couldn't explain? And yet, even in my most celebrated moments, even in the perfection everyone admired, I began to wonder, what if everything I believed was only a shadow of the truth? The turning point came in the most unexpected way. I was attending a business leadership seminar in Amman, Jordan, a trip organized by my university. It was supposed to be a week of networking and personal branding. I had no reason to expect anything more. One afternoon, after the final session, I stopped at a quiet cafe near Rainbow Street. I wanted a moment of silence to review my notes and prepare for the evening. As I sipped my Arabic coffee, I noticed a man sitting alone by the window, reading a book in Arabic. There was nothing remarkable about him at first. No robe, no cross, no signals. But his peace disturbed me. He looked up and smiled, not with arrogance or pity, but a gentleness I hadn't seen before. It was like he saw me, not my image, not my position, just me. He greeted me respectfully and asked if I wanted to join him. I hesitated, but something in his tone felt safe. We spoke casually at first, about books, family, and the Middle East. But there was a depth in his words, not rehearsed, not defensive. He was content, and I couldn't understand why. It gnawed at me because I had everything and still carried a weight. He seemed to carry nothing, yet walked with ease. His name was Elias. He wasn't trying to convert me. He wasn't quoting scripture or challenging my theology. He simply existed with authenticity. That was his evangelism. Presence. After we parted, I couldn't shake the feeling. I returned to my hotel and couldn't sleep. His voice echoed. Not what he said, but how he said it. It felt like a seed had been planted. 2 days later, we crossed paths again at the cafe. He handed me a small book. Just read it once, he said. Not as a believer, but as a seeker. It was the Injil, the New Testament in Arabic. Every part of me screamed not to take it. I had been trained to reject such things instantly, to fear them, to see them as poison, but my hands didn't obey my mind. I took it and slipped it into my coat. I didn't open it, not right away, but I didn't throw it away either. That was the first crack in the wall I'd spent my life building. Something in me had changed, though I couldn't yet admit it. I returned to Qatar with the book hidden in my luggage, and the memory of Elias etched in my heart. Weeks passed. I buried myself in busyness, in mosque activities, in community leadership, trying to smother the curiosity that refused to die. But the quiet moments became unbearable. Late at night, alone in my study, I'd find myself staring at the drawer where I'd hidden the Injil. One night, unable to resist, I opened it. My eyes fell on the first verse of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I felt a chill, then a fire. I shut the book immediately, but the words had entered, softly, gently, like water through stone. From that night on, I began to read more, slowly, carefully. Each passage unraveled something inside me. This wasn't the harsh imperial Christianity I had been warned about. This was different. It spoke of love, grace, and relationship, not domination. I was torn. Part of me wanted to run, to confess to the Imam and seek purification. Another part, the deeper, quieter part, felt alive for the first time. The words didn't threaten me. They invited me. They whispered a name I had never dared to speak with reverence: Jesus. But how could I reconcile what I was reading with everything I had been taught? The Quran warned of lies. My teachers warned of trickery. My culture warned of shame. And yet, nothing about this felt like a lie. The more I resisted, the more peace I felt. And that was the greatest paradox of all. I should have felt guilt. I should have felt terror. But instead, I felt seen. Not judged. Not manipulated. Just seen. For the first time, I felt as though God was not watching me from above, demanding performance, but reaching toward me, desiring connection. I kept reading the Injil in secret. Each night when the world was silent, I returned to the pages like a man starving for something he couldn't name. I began with the Gospel of John and felt as though every word was tailored for me. Jesus didn't speak like a prophet from afar. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't demanding rituals. He was inviting me, to follow, to believe, to be loved. It scared me. I thought I had known God my whole life, but now I questioned whether I had only known religion. Could it be that I had memorized his rules, but never heard his voice? The dreams started soon after, vivid, persistent, unmistakable. In each one, a man clothed in white stood in a vast desert. His face glowed like the sun, but it didn't burn me. His voice was only one word: follow. I dismissed the first dream as exhaustion. The second made me anxious. By the third, I couldn't sleep. I described them vaguely to a local imam, and he told me to recite protective surahs and fast for purification. I did, but the dreams continued, and the man in white kept returning. The message didn't change. Follow. That was all. And yet, It felt like everything. I began to live two lives. On the outside, I was still Amir Nassar, the devout, the respected, the leader. I gave Friday sermons, corrected students' recitations, and fulfilled every duty expected of me. But on the inside, I was unraveling. I was questioning everything I had built. I stopped feeling joy in the rituals. The verses I once loved now felt dry, hollow. But when I opened the Injil, tears would fall without warning. Jesus wasn't just a prophet in those pages. He was alive. He was speaking. And somehow, I knew he was speaking to me. I couldn't tell anyone. Not my wife, not my brothers, not even my most trusted mentor. If I did, I would lose everything. My marriage, my children, my inheritance, my name. Apostasy was not a private sin in my world. It was a crime, a betrayal, a death sentence. And yet, I couldn't go back. The bridge had caught fire behind me. I hadn't crossed fully, but I couldn't return either. I was suspended between two worlds. One familiar and safe but empty. The other unknown and terrifying but alive. My soul was being torn, not by hatred, but by truth. The final breaking point came one night as I sat in my study. I fell to my knees, trembling. I didn't use ritual words. I didn't recite anything memorized. I whispered, "Jesus, if you are truly the Son of God, show me." Not religion. I want truth. What happened next wasn't dramatic. No visions, no earthquakes. Just a wave of peace so thick it silenced every fear. I began to weep, not out of guilt but out of relief. I wasn't performing. I wasn't proving. I was surrendering. And in that surrender, I felt a love I had never known before. I knew I had just met the truth. The days that followed were both beautiful and brutal. My wife discovered the Injil and a journal I had been writing. I'll never forget her eyes, wide with fear, filled with betrayal. "Have you left Islam?" she asked. I couldn't answer. My silence was louder than words. She left that night, taking our children with her. Within days, I was summoned to my father-in-law's estate. The verdict was swift. I had dishonored the family, the faith, and the legacy. I was cut off, divorced, disinherited, declared an apostate. It wasn't just a rejection, it was an erasure. Legal charges followed. Fabricated accusations of fraud and mismanagement were filed to justify my arrest. I was taken to the central prison under the pretense of investigation, but there was no investigation. There was punishment. I was beaten, isolated, and deprived. The guards gave me one offer: recite the Shahada, renounce Jesus, and walk free. But how could I? I had tasted truth. I had seen light. To deny it now would be to crucify my own soul. I remained silent. I whispered only one name in the darkness: Jesus. And in that darkness, he stayed. Prison was not a place of silence. It was a place of noise, chaos, and cruelty. But within me, a deeper silence had been broken. The presence of Jesus didn't shield me from suffering, but he strengthened me through it. Every day brought humiliation. Every night brought pain. I lost weight. I lost sleep. But I did not lose hope. The words of the Injil I had memorized came back to me like a lifeline. "I am with you always." I whispered them in the dark, through cracked lips and aching bones. I wasn't alone. Not truly. Even when everything around me screamed abandonment, I knew he was near. One morning, a guard named Samir slipped a note through the bars. It read, "You are not the only one." At first, I thought it was a trap. But then during his shift, he lingered near my cell and whispered, "I follow him too." My heart nearly stopped. Could it be? A brother in Christ in this place of torment? He told me he had seen the man in white in a dream. The same man, the same voice. "Help Amir," the man had said. "I have more work for him." In that moment, the prison was no longer a tomb. It became a forge. Something was being made in me, something eternal. Samir began to plan my escape. He explained that on Fridays, the sanitation crew changed shifts, and outside contractors were allowed inside. If I disguised myself as one of them, I might slip through. It was risky. If caught, it meant execution, for both of us. But I knew the voice that had found me wouldn't lead me to destruction. We prepared in silence, in whispers, in prayer. He brought me a uniform, gloves, a cap, and a mask. The night before, I didn't sleep. I knelt on the cold stone floor and said just one thing: Lord, if you have brought me this far, bring me through. The escape was surreal. I dressed, I lined up with the workers. I walked with my head low and my heart pounding. 2 guards glanced at me, but said nothing. When the door clicked shut behind me, I knew I had crossed the first threshold, but I didn't celebrate. I moved fast, disappearing into alleyways, hiding in abandoned buildings, surviving on what Samir had given me, a small water flask in the New Testament. I headed south, avoiding roads and checkpoints. My destination, the border of Oman. My feet blistered, my legs ached, but my spirit soared. I remembered the dream. The man had said, "Here you will not die." Crossing into Oman was both agony and glory. I crawled beneath razor wire, tore my clothes, and bled from the arms. But I made it. In Muscat, a Pakistani Christian family took me in. They didn't ask questions. They just fed me, clothed me, and prayed over me. Through Samir's contacts, I was smuggled onto a cargo ship headed to Mombasa, Kenya. For 5 days I slept among crates in darkness, the sea my lullaby. The pain in my body nothing compared to the freedom in my soul. I wept quietly, thinking of my children, of Alia, of my father. I had lost them, but I had found him. In Kampala, Uganda, I registered as a refugee. I had no money, no identity, no plan, but I had faith, and that was enough. I rented a small room near the Rubaga Cathedral. I joined an underground group of ex-Muslim believers. They had similar stories: abandonment, exile, betrayal, but also redemption, love, and strength. We met in basements, in hidden rooms behind shops, in silence and worship. I fixed solar panels, repaired broken homes, used my engineering skills not for profit, but for people. Every project became a prayer. Every wall I built was a sermon. I had become more than a survivor. I had become a servant. One Sunday, in a hidden room behind a fruit stall, I shared my testimony aloud for the first time. My voice shook, my heart raced, but when I spoke of the man in white, of the peace that came like fire and water, the room fell silent. And then, tears, not of pity, but of recognition. A former imam from Somalia hugged me and whispered, "You are not alone, brother." That moment changed everything. I was no longer a fugitive. I was a son, a brother, a witness. The love I had found now had to be given. The freedom I had tasted now had to be shared. My story wasn't a tragedy. It was a calling. Some say freedom is walking away from something, but true freedom is walking toward someone. I didn't escape a religion. I discovered a relationship. Jesus did not give me a new identity card. He gave me a new heart. He didn't just rewrite my path. He rewrote my purpose. My scars have not vanished, but they no longer define me. My past is no longer my prison. It is the platform from which I now speak life. If you're watching this and you feel torn between what you were told to believe and what your soul is quietly searching for, I want you to know, you're not alone. Maybe you've heard his voice in the quiet. Maybe you've seen him in dreams you can't explain. Maybe you're afraid. I was too. Following Jesus is not easy. It will cost you, but what you gain cannot be compared to what you lose. Peace, love, truth, freedom. I found these not in a system, not in a book of laws, but in a person, in Jesus. If you're searching for that kind of life, don't wait for everything to fall apart before you cry out. Don't let fear steal the invitation that's already in front of you. So I want to invite you, right now, to take a step. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how much you've done or how far you think you've fallen. Jesus is not waiting for you to be perfect. He's waiting for you to be honest. Open a Bible. Read the words of Jesus. Let them speak to your soul like they did to mine. If you've been touched by what you've heard, if this story stirred something inside of you, don't let the moment pass. Respond. Reach out. Begin. Subscribe to this channel, not just for content, but for connection. Declare with courage, I choose to follow Jesus. Write in the comments, I have decided to follow Jesus. Let this be more than a view. Let it be your first step toward the truth. If you've already found Jesus, I encourage you, do not hide your story. Someone is waiting to hear what you've survived. Your voice matters. Share this video with someone who needs hope, someone who's afraid to question, someone who thinks they're too far gone. This testimony is not mine alone. It belongs to every soul set free by grace. Help us spread the light. Thank you for listening, for staying, for opening your heart. I may never know your name, where you're from, or what you carry, but I want you to know this. You are not forgotten. You are not unloved. You are not alone. The same Jesus who found me in a prison cell is with you in whatever darkness you face now. Let him speak. Let him lead. Let him love you. Until we meet again, whether here, in a message, or in eternity, I'll be praying for you. Stay strong, stay connected, and above all, stay in the truth. Because the truth isn't a concept, the truth is a person, and he is calling your name. We'll talk again soon. I'm here, and I'm waiting to hear your story too.